Good, jolly good. Hello everyone. Hello. Hi, thank you for coming. Thank you. I recognise there was a brief pitch earlier. I went, I'm going to talk about transformations and invented the word Tragile. Probably not invented, but hey ho, there you go. Everyone else was doing it. So when I started writing this talk, I called it 7 things to avoid when you move to Agile, transformation troubles, that kind of stuff. And I started writing it. And yeah, as I said earlier, it's more than 7. So don't start counting them off and go, well, that was 7, I'm done. There's a bit of a list at the end as well, so don't feel you have to scribble them all down. There's a page, just go, okay, that'll do fine. That's my Twitter address. I'm just going to put my phone down here, and every time it goes, I'll assume someone's tweeted something nice about my talk. If it's entirely silent, you'll just watch me over the next hour gently die in front of you. Okay. Right. So, quick intro. I've been doing Agile things for a while. It was me earlier when the guy went, before Agile came here, it was about 2010, and I went, because I've been doing Agile since about 2001 here in the UK-ish. Been in some big transformations and some small transformations and some big other things that were trying to be transformations and weren't, and some small other things that potentially could have been and weren't either. I've probably seen all ends of the Agile scale. I've worked in organisations of 6 people, and I've worked in organisations of 26,000 people. So, yeah, had a look at it. So, this is about transformation. Now, a lot of people think, yeah, we're doing an Agile transformation, and they aren't, because actually a transformation is something quite fundamental, really. It's a change. It's a marked change. You know, people love drawing the. So I'm heading for the chair. People love drawing the caterpillar and the butterfly. The less guys use it on their charts, and they draw a caterpillar with some wings stuck on it. You know, transformation is a big thing. And a lot of organisations go, yeah, we're doing one of those, and actually they aren't even coming close. Because the thing is about transformations, hi, come in, is they aren't for everyone. And someone said this to me about 6 months ago, and I thought, yeah, you know, you are absolutely right. Transformations are for the bold or the desperate. Because something has to be going fairly wrong for you to start thinking, actually, we've got to change something dramatically. We want a marked transformational change. You don't just do that for fun. Well, maybe you do, but I've not seen many organisations trying that. And there's another thing about transformations, which is a bit cliched. Some organisations go, you know what? We're like this perfectly respectable modern Honda, but yeah, we're going to have an Agile transformation and we're going to become a Formula 1 car. Our organisation will be this. And I find the people who say that usually imagine that that will be done via a mixed media of fairy dust, bit of Yoda usually, and often a team of crack ninjas as yet undescribed. Yeah, transformations aren't like that. When you find someone doing a Formula 1 car analogy, please go, just calm down a little bit. It's a bit more like this. So this is a late 90s Vauxhall Astra. It's a perfectly reasonable car. In its day, it was lovely. And here is the modern day Astra. Again, it's a perfectly reasonable car. An Agile transformation is almost like trying to go from an older version of you to a newer version of you. The internal components of those cars are completely unidentifiable from one to the other. They're all different. But actually, it still looks like an Astra. There's no massive leap of faith here of moving into spacecraft or anything. Actually, we just want our organisation to run well, better, do more, be more fuel efficient, all those good things. And usually, there's no ninjas, and there isn't Yoda, and there's no dust. There's a bunch of shadowy figures in the background. I'm sometimes one of those who kind of help redefine the Astra. Now, the good news is most companies start here with a 1990s Astra. Some actually start here. Yes, this is a 1978 Ford Astra. Not Ford, Vauxhall. So, I think setting the expectation in organisations is always important. We aren't going to the moon, but we can make a lot of improvement. So, the next thing I'm going to talk about is technical debt. And you're all going, hang on, what's that got to do with transformation? We'll see. everyone here familiar with the phrase technical debt? For those who aren't, there's a quick definition of it. This is just about us basically doing the quick, easy thing. Actually, we'll just make that happen quickly and we'll get the product out there, and yeah, we know we've got to rework it later. But hey, we got it out there, we got some business value. It was a good thing. Let's repay the tech debt later. Yep. So what companies tend to do is something akin to technical debt, which I've called organisational debt. Hi.
Bring you some water.
Well, I've got 2 already, but I'll take a third, thank you. Oh.
Raffle them over.
Anyone need a bottle of water? I've got 2 spare at the front. So, here's a thought. Companies tend to choose easy solutions. And they also tend to do it in isolation. If you look at an organisational model, actually it's got lots of different moving parts. You'll have the finance department will go and buy their own system because it does what they want it to. Then you'll have PMO go and do some stuff and buy a tool set because it kind of works for them. And then you'll have, and I know project managers got some stick earlier, so I'll just use the phrase project management will grab a framework that they think can control what they're trying to deliver. And then someone else will come up with some strategy and road mapping that might kind of work. And then someone else will do something where actually they decide that they're the best people to define the product for now because well, we don't really have a customer research department. But then you time travel that forward a little bit, just like the Vauxhall Astra, and suddenly you're in this position where all of those little bits of decisions which were the quick, easy, actually we've just made life a little bit easier, have kind of weighed everything down a lot. And this is why organisations usually reach this point of actually we need to have a transformation, because actually they can't do stuff. They don't go, it's all going fine, so we'll have a transformation anyway. It's like, we can't do things we want to do. Now, a friend of mine, Nick Silver, some of you in the room know him, I know that, wrote a quick paper on tech debt, and he drew this chart, which I kind of liked. And he said, you know what, and this is in the tech domain, if I've got this sense of velocity of how fast we can work, and that's because of some inherent tech debt causing us a problem, if we stop and we down tools, well not down tools, change tools, and we fix our tech debt, our delivery velocity flatlines at that point, but then having fixed it, actually we've got this boosted velocity concept, and therefore at some point in future, here, actually we break even and start to get payback. Notice you don't get the payback here. Some people think fixing tech debt suddenly creates magic. No, it helps us better later. It's great. And I saw this, thought, you know what? I can probably apply this to my emerging concept of organisational debt. So I did. I drew a picture. I've applied it. When I drew my velocity line, I made it curved because actually organisations tend to get in this point of, you know, it's not as good as it used to be. In the old days, we could do stuff quicker. You know what, even in not that long ago, I could release stuff when I wanted to, and stuff's just gently slowing down, and they're going, actually, we need to do something about it. Now, again, I drew this as a curve upwards because you won't find a single large consultancy, or indeed small consultancy, they'll go, let's do an agile transformation, by the way, your organisation is going to flatline for that entire time. They don't like that. So we have to pitch this message that actually there will be some levels of increase in velocity, or at least improvement through that period, but actually, yeah, we're putting change into a system. Stuff is going to slow down more. We're going to change the way people work. We're going to train people. We're going to get them to do different stuff. We're going to rip out some of those weird processes that got put in by finance and see what happens. We might experiment a bit. But actually, here's an interesting mental note. The break-even, again, can be some long time after you've finished your transformation. It does mean you have to come up with some sense of end for transformation. I'll talk about that a bit later. So, yeah, that led me on a little bit further. Here's a quote. I forget who said this one. But this is one of those things that everyone nods, agrees with, go, yeah, this is so true, this is amazing. Agile transformation needs to be driven top down and bottom up. Championed, embodied, enacted at all levels of the organisation because, yes, it must. And then no bugger does it at all. What happens is the people at the top go, yes, you should do that down below me. Please, can you embody it for me? And I shall watch from afar. Who says I'm lying? Yeah, nobody. And this is true, but we all ignore it. And there's something else that we all seem to ignore as well. So, everyone heard of version 1? They got a tool set? Every single year they also do the Agile State of the Nation survey. Does everyone read that? No. There's some nods. That's good. I think most people don't read it, actually. So every year it asks this question: what are the leading causes of failed Agile projects? I've circled the ones on there that relate to company culture. Every year it says company culture continues to dominate the top causes of failed Agile projects. And the others are some bits and bobs, but hey-ho, there it is. And then they ask another question: what are barriers to further Agile adoption? And guess what's the top three? It's culture again. Ability to change organisational culture. Organisational resistance to change, pre-existing rigid waterfall framework. Those are always fun to dabble with. There's some other scatters in there, but ultimately, the main problem in doing Agile, going Agile, transforming to Agile is a cultural one. And guess where the culture tends to come from in an organisation? Not only from bottom up, but top down as well. It's funny that. In fact, someone said to me a while ago, and I do quote this probably too often, that corporate culture is set by the lowest standard of behaviour that an organisation is willing to tolerate. And that's a fascinating thing when you say it to people in organisations which have some fairly bad behaviours. You're putting up with all this stuff, so people think it's fine. Bless you. So, culture. There's a funny word. Jeff Patton wrote a paper quite some time ago where he talked about cultures and Agile. Not just cultures, I'm not going way off beam here. And he said, any culture, not necessarily a religious one, just a culture, tends to have its own language, not necessarily its own dialect, but certainly words and phrases that it tends to use itself that have meaning within its own environment and less meaning outside. Yeah, we've got loads of those in the Agile world, haven't we? Scrum, that means something to us, that means very little to other people. We know things like velocity and complexity and other things. We have a language. We even can start making jokes in our own language, which I think is probably a bad thing. Cultures have stories and heroes and myths and legends and jokes. Then with the jokes I mentioned. Yeah, we got these too actually in Agile. Who here hadn't heard the story about the 17 guys who went skiing in Utah? Got a bit of paper, wrote some stuff on it, called it a manifesto, and we went, yeah, we love that. You know, that's got almost mythical status now. So, yeah, we've got some old timers, some heroes. We've got lists of names of people that, Mike Cohen, bless him, still saying the same things about user stories and still will be in 10 years, but hey, he's a hero. Also, rituals, ceremonies, celebrations, we got those too, actually. We love these things in Agile. We've got our own ceremonies. Let's have a stand-up. Say that outside the Agile community, people go, why? The chair's broken? We've also got a stack of these things, values. We like values. We've got principles and values. Even XP's got a bunch of values. We love values. We've got some taboos. What? You're estimating in hours? You're using man days? You know, that's way off the chart, isn't it? Anyone here estimating man days? Anyone? Phew, got to wait. Oh, don't. And then we've got a bunch more stuff here. Beliefs, assumptions, attitudes, models, symbols. Yeah. Actually, us Agilists all believe genuinely that you can't estimate a project at the start. We know we can't do that, so we don't try. There are other schools of thought that think they can. I should go to Project Managers Anonymous, really, because I used to be a project manager a long time ago, long, back in the 90s, and I did kind of believe then that you could maybe estimate something to the end, but I've been assimilated since then. And hey-ho, we got some of these things as well. Technology and artifacts. We've got our own tool sets. We like things like burn-down charts. We like team boards. We like Kanban boards, better than team boards. Got more columns. Got whip limits. Ooh, up the whip limits. So Jeff, having said all of that about cultures, kind of leads to this sort of blindingly obvious point. Oh heck, being Agile is actually a culture. Ooh. I'm heading for the chair again. Going to lean up the chair. So when you start talking about an Agile transformation, actually what you're talking about is a cultural change. That's what you're doing. You are trying to change the culture of an organisation. That sounds way more technical than the board thought, doesn't it? They were like, can't we just teach some Scrum somewhere and we're done? No. No, it's a bit harder than that. And I'm going to quote Peter Drucker just because everyone quotes Peter Drucker. There we go. Everyone says that. Yeah, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Actually, if you can get the guys at the top to understand that actually doing some cultural change is way better than talking about strategy. It can take you quite a long way. So, just put a quick stake in the heart of some of the people who are doubtless either in the room or at this conference. Most coaches can't teach culture. Just chuck that one in there. Sorry, coaches. There are some that can. There are some really good coaches out there, and there's some very good coaches who coach other things, but don't do this bit. So where does that take you? It takes you to a bit of a weird place, actually. Because we're now talking about a change program. That's what it is. It's a big cultural change program, and that tends to span across 3 areas. We all talk about people, process, and technology. Well, I say we all. I do. Hopefully it's not just me. Just one nod in the room there. So, if you start thinking again, taking this strand of our transformation as being some sort of a cultural change, looking at these areas, well, one of the things that actually the people are going to experience is this bad boy. Culture shock. Bit of disorientation experienced by someone when they're subjected to an unfamiliar culture, way of life, or set of attitudes and beliefs. Actually, that's what going to Agile is. That is an Agile transformation. We say, guys, we're going to change the way you work, your way of life. We're going to give you a new set of beliefs. We're going to change your attitude. We are going to do these things to you. Whew. So, there's 4 stages, if you like, or parts to culture shock. Top one, honeymoon. Yeah. Hey, this sounds amazing. When you go on holiday to a new foreign destination, you are in that honeymoon period, actually. You've gone to a new culture. Oh, this is amazing. I love it. The language is great. The food's fabulous. It's super. It's great here. I want to live here. And actually, you've usually left that destination long before you get into the frustration stage. But actually, the frustration stage follows honeymoon when you discover that actually you can't buy Marmite. I hate Marmite personally, or Weetabix, or something else that actually you've decided is quite a part of your being. Equally, the electricity here goes off at funny times. The water doesn't taste right. I can't speak the language very well. And that sets in. This is very normal. And then after that frustration stage, which can last quite some time, people then get into this adjustment phase where, actually, I'm starting to get a sense of this now. I kind of feel my place could be here. I'm getting it. I've learnt some words in the language now. I sort of understand some of the routines. I know that if I turn on the television after 11 o'clock at night, there's nothing because the power at the mast up the hills died or whatever. But you kind of get through that adjustment phase, and then finally, you reach acceptance. Any Agile transformation puts people, in fact the whole organisation, through that spectrum. You can't dodge it. Now, some people who are of a certain type may spend a lot of time there, no time there, dash through that and get to here. Fine. Some may spend no time there, all of their time here, and you're constantly trying to push them to here. It's a people thing. I've got people in the room now clenching their teeth and nodding. That's always good. That means I've touched a nerve somewhere. Because the thing that we all kind of know but don't like to admit is this. People don't like change. We don't. It's not in our nature. We like to create our nests. We like things as they are. If I go to an organisation that's implemented hot desking, everyone quietly hates it because they can't come to the familiar more nods in the room, surroundings where they've got their pen pot and they've got their little picture of their children and all that kind of stuff because they've made themselves something familiar. They don't like the change. Why do I need to go and sit at a white blanket bland desk having collected my keyboard from a locker when I want to sit in front of the photos of my children? Seems perfectly reasonable. So people don't like it. And more importantly, at least to this talk, companies don't actually like change either. So when you start talking about an agile transformation, one of the first things I say to organisations is, you won't like it. And then they try and convince me how wrong I am, and that's fine. And if they can get enough proof points on that scale that really they want to do it, then we can start talking about it. So I did have a slide that said, where do we start when I started this section? So where do you start? And you start with the cool cats, with the amazing guys, this bunch of people, these people here, who are a manifestation of HR. Yes, you start with HR. Why do we start with HR? Because people. Because we've just said we're going to try and change the attitudes, behaviours, beliefs, working practices, you name it, of the people. The people. I nearly said staff then, that was awful. The people inside the organisation. And you can't do that. UK employment law will not let you. Sorry. I could turn to a project manager and say, you're going to be a scrum master in 3 weeks' time. And they'll say, no, I won't, because my job spec says I'm a project manager and I've got a list of responsibilities on here that tell me what I do for this organisation. And I have a contract of employment that references that job spec. So sorry, not happening. So you have to start with HR. One of the most successful transformations I was involved in was very interesting in this space. 3 months before the transformation started, they put the entire of the IT delivery function, about 200 people, on notice. Here's your 12-week consultation period starting now. Yeah. You are all going to be invited to come on a journey with the organisation. You will have potentially different roles. You will have potentially different responsibilities. You will potentially have different line management reporting frameworks. Your world will potentially be different. Today, we can't tell you where you will be in that space, or indeed if actually you have a home in that space. We sincerely hope you do, and if it transpires you don't, there will be a nice check, don't worry, but actually you're all on notice. Yeah, they're all a cheerful bunch for the next 12 weeks, I tell you. Very cheerful. But you've got to take these approaches, sadly, because you can't just change people's jobs. So at the very least, go and talk to HR and say, we need to change the way people work. What do you need to do to help that happen? Right, where'd you go after HR? Any guesses? Because you weren't expecting HR, were you? Good. I like finance. I'd probably put that third or fourth, but actually, it's... And in fairness, in some companies, you do need to talk to the union as well. That's a very fair point, which I didn't really consider on the previous slide, but yes, union reps, all that, but HR will probably help you through that bit. Now, next, you're going to talk to facilities. Yeah, because they're a fascinating bunch of people. I love facilities departments. So it's rather topical, actually, but I have on my next slide an email which was sent only a few weeks ago inside an organisation which I had some relationship with, from facilities to all staff. You probably can't read the small print. Football World Cup fever is in full force. However, we would like to remind everyone that hanging decorations and physical games are prohibited within office areas. There are a few reasons as to why this practice has been put in place. Flags, buntings and other hanging decorations pose health and safety risks during AC and lighting maintenance activities that occur within ceiling spaces, as do inflatable football goals and footballs being kicked around the office during normal day-to-day business activities. And then my favourite, to the owners of the types of items described above, please remove them by close of play tomorrow, plenty of time. Otherwise, unfortunately, we will be forced to remove and dispose. Thank you for your understanding of cooperation. Yeah. Now, I was having some fledgling agile conversations within this organisation when this little beauty arrived, and it demonstrated that facilities actually held the keys to the castle. Scrum boards, not a hope. You know, can we have wheelie whiteboards in the office? No, facilities won't allow it. Go and talk to facilities. We'd like to redecorate. We'd like to move desks around. We'd like to have things on walls. We want to physicalise our work. You don't want facilities turning up and removing and disposing of all of those in the night. Go there second. Otherwise, they'll get you later. So after that, I tend to go here. Well, in fairness, a couple of these guys have been involved before. This is a sort of metaphor for the boardroom, the C-suite or whatever. And using that metaphor, and this is, again, rather topical actually. Not intentionally. If you think about your C-suite, your board of directors or whatever, as a football team, they've all been kicking that ball around together for quite some time. If you think about them actually as being quite a, a fairly good football team, not necessarily Columbia, but a good football team. They're pretty handy. They've learnt the rules. They know the offside rule. They can win some tournaments, score some goals. They can do some good stuff, and they all work together cohesively. So just say one day they get a new coach walk in, and he says, "Hey guys, football, you're all great at it. So we're just going to change the game a little bit, just sort of some advanced techniques. And anyway, here's the new ball. So actually, we're not going to play football anymore. We're going to play rugby." Something will happen. Human nature, change. Rule of thirds, usually, actually. About a third of those people will go, "You know what? I've been playing football for years and bored of it. I've always wanted to play rugby. Let's play rugby." Another third will go, "You know what? Let's see how it goes. I'm happy to give it a try." And another third will go, "I am a football player. I joined this football team to play football. Don't know what the hell this means. I'm out of here." And they will go. I didn't join for this. Joined for football, not rugby. So here's an interesting phrase. Sometimes you need to do some of this. You need to change management. As in, change management.
Yes.
But also, cascade that through the organisation, that rule of thirds. You're going to get people who are going to leave. It's going to happen because some people like the way they work. They're very used to the culture that they are within, and you are talking about a cultural change. Some people will want to get the aeroplane home. It will happen. So, do not treat people leaving as a measure of failure. Actually, it's a pretty good measure that you're making some change, that stuff is happening. But again, this is why you need to have had a chat with HR, because what they don't need is a queue at their desks of people saying, "I've been unfairly dismissed." I mentioned people, process, technology earlier, so I'm going to mention it again. Ta-da. I'll mention it again. Across the different parts of a delivery organisation, you have different mixes of these three things. In engineering, it's pretty tech heavy, actually. Quite a lot of process. From a people perspective, yeah, there's some great people there, but it's not really people heavy. They come up through development, the balance shifts a bit. By the time you get into product shaping, this is really quite people-y, actually. They're still interested in process and tech, but less so. And actually here in the strategy space, this is all about people. If you want to get people to think differently about strategy, sorry, there's a few photos being taken, I'll just smile. Anyone? It's a different shape of challenge. And you have to cling to this when you're talking about transformation, because what you do in one space will not fit another space at all, actually. As the old saying goes, one shoe does not fit all. Do you see what I did there? Trainer? Never mind. So, from my experience, where the problems usually are, hi, please come in.
Thank you.
Where the problems usually are in an organisation that's looking at transformation, it's kind of this sort of shape, actually. Oh, we can't release anything anymore. We can't ship product. There's big problems here in the release space. They tend to blame, well, mostly these guys, but actually the problem is usually here in the product space, because the organisation hasn't really understood what product means or how to better define something that actually can get built and shipped. These guys in the middle, actually, they write lines of code, and they're pretty good at writing lines of code in the main. And actually, an agile change to people who still write the same lines of code regardless of what sort of framework they're using, it has minimal impact. So for me, really, thinking about that shape helps us think about where we should maybe target our efforts inside the transformation space. Only what do most agile transformations actually look like? They look like this. And I don't know why, but what tends to happen is we're going to go agile. Let's train all the development teams in Scrum. Let's start there. I don't know why, but I think it's because, in fact I do know, I'll tell you why, I'll let you into the secret. It's because the people bit, remember that's here, is really hard. The process bit is really easy. I can describe Scrum in 15 pages. I didn't, sorry, the chaps who wrote the Scrum Guide did. I can provide a paper that describes it in 15 pages. It's easy to understand, it's a process. People will say, oh no, it's a framework, it's a bunch of things. Yes, it is, it's got some lovely values and some great stuff in there, but actually you can train the process to people very easily. And people love doing that. Yeah, we've trained 32 teams now, box tick. We've trained another 20, box tick. This bit, scary. We've got to have deep conversations about actually what our strategy is, what product means to us as an organisation, how we interact with our customer base to better think about what product might mean. On this end, I think, to be honest, some companies are just scared of the people in release management space. Oh, we can't go and talk to them. Yeah, no. Yeah, they're beyond development. Way too scary. Or either that, or they're lovely people, but these guys have been saying, can we please have some automation? It'll only cost £400,000. And the rest of the organisation say, no, we're going to spend it somewhere else. Who knows? So the thing is, I try and make organisations quite simple in the way I view them. Here's my two-box model of a company. You've either got people who ask for stuff or people who do stuff. I actually invented this whilst at the ONS, when you were there, Jane. I actually did a three-box model. This is the cut-down version. I've simplified it, challenged the complexity of the three-box model. And just as a little bit of a note, here's something which is worth remembering. The people asking, the business, shouldn't tell tech how to do the stuff. Somehow they always do, though. Oh, I need this solution. No. Yeah, I need it to look just like that. Why? What's the problem you're trying to solve? And equally, tech shouldn't really tell the business what they need. Funnily enough, that also tends to happen as well. Oh, all you need is a page that does that. Why? So, coming on to the more complicated three-box model, there's actually another box inside my organisational picture, which is this one. In any company, you've got a bunch of askers and a bunch of doers. They're adding some value there, love that. And then you've got this monitor column. Yeah, this is the scary bit where we're trying to actually have the transformation usually. Yes, it's in there and there, but that's where those hard processes are that we have. That's where your design authority is. That's where your requirements documents sit. That's where all of the stuff which bogs everything down lives in. Note the ask box slightly bigger than the do box. Always that way. What we're actually trying to do in any sort of transformation in an organisation, certainly an agile one, is actually just do that. Wouldn't that be great? Because agile, it's all about challenging complexity, stripping out stuff we don't like. You know, this is a lean term, but hey, we love lean as well. And actually, if you keep that in mind when you tackle your transformation, you'll suddenly find that, you know what, let's let the doers keep doing for a bit. Where we're going to get some real gains is by ripping out some of that process and some of that misery that we've got that's slowing everything down. As a tiny aside, something else that slows things down is WIP. WIP is scary. I was in an organisation not long ago that have 70 development staff, so it's not big. How many projects do you think they had on the go? I'll take random numbers from the crowd.
Easy.
Any more? I've had an 80. That's a bit gamey, I'll grant you. No. It was 62. I'll explain why a little later. Yeah, here's an important thing though. Actually, stop concentrating on what the organisation does and start thinking about what it actually achieves. this will drive a whole bunch of useful transformational behaviour. Slightly topical again, although it's not grass. I go into some companies, in fact I've just left one, and they kind of have almost convinced themselves they can do an agile transformation themselves. This is fascinating. A couple of people there go, I recognise somehow we've convinced ourselves we can do an agile transformation on our own, and I know we can't, but there's a whole bunch of them who are still nodding along to that. They're going to have an interesting journey in the next few months, and then they'll probably have some form of reset and maybe hopefully get some people in to help. In any sport, you pick the people at the top of their game, they have a coach. So even when I go to the best board in the world in any organisation that goes, you know, we know our sector backwards, forwards, inside out, we know this company to death, we, rah, 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 all of that. I say, that's great, get that. Probably could still do with some coaching. As a little bit of an analogy, I think trying to run an agile transformation without some form of proper professional help from people who've got some sense of what it's like is like trying to do cordon bleu cookery from a recipe card. Just letting the photos. Now, it tends to not turn out quite like the picture. A couple of examples. This one's my favourite because he just seems to be very sad and slightly crying. Now, sometimes not just not quite turning out like the picture happens, it can be worse. Yeah. Transformations need people who've been there and done it and know what bad eggs look like. Okay, another thing that people tend to do, which is always a bit scary for me, is they go and rush to the tool cabinet. Very exciting. We're going to go agile. No, sorry. They probably won't help you. Right, in the room, quick. Show of hands or shout out. Anyone here using Jira? Yeah, I've got quite a lot of hands. Yeah, okay. Anyone like Jira? Just the one. Yeah, that's a familiar pattern. Hey, I shouldn't knock Jira too much. I'm being recorded. It's not that bad. There's a huge problem with tools in the round, particularly in the agile space. We're trying to make a cultural change. We're trying to change people's behaviours. We're trying to stop them from staring at screens and doing what look like admin processes inside systems. We don't like that kind of stuff. We champion people and interactions over processes and tools. Yet people often run to the tool cabinet and often go, let's chuck Scrum into the development area. Well, actually, that's just processes and tools. Actually, when we teach people Scrum, we do it on walls with post-it notes. Well, I certainly do, and good colleagues of mine. This is a really good reason. We're trying to teach people the right behaviours, the right attitudes and beliefs, those things that go into a culture. If you start by implementing Jira or another similar tool and go, right, there we go, we're all using Jira, all you've done is make people stare at their computer screens. You have not promoted the cultural changes that you need in an agile environment to help people be good and go on that journey. Got it? Do you need to get that one? Sure? You all right? Yeah?
Sorry.
That's okay. Finished? Yeah? Anyone else need a phone break? No? Okay. Moving on. Related to tools, here's another scary thing. Ooh, frameworks. Yeah, they're exciting, aren't they? Right. Do not, please, go and lock yourself into something big and scary. Not unless you really, really have to. I've not said the safe word. Oh no, I have just said the safe word. Okay. Part of being agile is trying to understand your organisation, your own culture, and effectively create your own identity, actually. Work out what works for you. If you take something big off the shelf and implement it, you don't know if it works for you. I'll mention the SAFE framework now. SAFe is designed for a certain type of organisation, broad brush, that works in a certain kind of way. That's fine, it's really good for that. It's for big companies, and it's for people who want to release on a fairly modest periodicity. It's got a whole bunch of waste in it, yeah, but it's also got a whole bunch of stuff that makes senior management feel very comfortable. Actually, if you have a senior management team who go, you know what, let's do this agile thing, and I don't care about management reporting for the next 6 months while we work out what the heck we actually want to know, you don't need all that stuff. So don't think grabbing something off the shelf and implementing it is your route to success. It will actually be your route to some success. I'm not saying these things are evil, but they're not tailored for you. They really aren't. Also, I've kind of said SAFe again, so I'll just say SAFe again. SAFe's about scale. Product management has come a long way in the last 5 to 10 years. It's come a huge way, actually. We now have roles related to product management, product managers. We have, because we did just have product owners, which I was familiar in Scrum. Now we have product management as a function, product managers. We now have UX engineers and a whole bunch of people who are really product focused, which we didn't have a dozen or so years ago when we were talking about Agile before. We're getting much better at understanding product and how we can make product small. And actually, if you can work out how to make your product small, scale down your product, you don't need to scale to a big framework. You don't need it. Actually do lots of small things. This kind of also sort of moves in the lean startup space. Pharma, I forget which, I think it was Lilly or GSK, quite a long time ago now, probably 15 years ago, they had hundreds of scientists staring into microscopes. Is it on my slide for the photo? No problem. Hundreds of scientists staring into microscopes trying to find the next blockbuster drug. And they were all kind of working together, and they were all kind of getting nowhere. So what they did was they went, you know what? Why don't we divide all of those up into little tiny teams? We'll make tiny little cells, and we'll make them all compete with each other in a lean startup way. They kind of solved the scale problem by making lots of small things. And they made them all fairly autonomous and independent, and if they started getting things that looked good, they gave them some more cash, and if they didn't look good, they stopped funding them and gave them something else to do. They'd started thinking about scaling problems smaller. If you can do the same with product, fabulous. Think about that in your transformation. If you've got a monolithic system like Microsoft Office, yes, something like SAFe might suit you. If you want to do releases regimented every 8-10 weeks, again, it might suit you. Actually, if you want to do daily releases, don't have a release train and a release train engineer, because all they'll do is just blow their own brain up. I spoke earlier about, okay, where do you know, what's the transformation start and end? So, Agile it's a journey. We always say, it's a journey, we're all on a journey. I'm still on a journey, but some people go into an Agile transformation just thinking that actually we're going to tick off a load of activities and we've kind of done it. Yeah, we trained 60 people in Scrum. Yeah, we implemented lean portfolio. Yeah, we've done, I don't know, something in the architecture space. That was that. Maybe we ran a small cultural program, if you're lucky. If you think about outcomes, you can sort of think about an end state for a transformation. You can have smart objectives for a transformation. What I'd say is just so don't worry about the activities too much. Think more about what your outcome is. You might just say, we'll have a critical mass of understanding and good feeling about our new culture. Actually, once a culture becomes self-engendering and people can come into it and feel naturalised into it when they arrive, that's pretty good actually for a transformation. Not saying everyone has got a certification. Please, just as another small aside, don't think an Agile transformation is getting everyone certified. And when I mean certified, I mean with Agile certificates. There's millions of them out there now. It's getting mind-boggling. Yeah. I wrote a post on LinkedIn a while ago, 7 months ago, about why waterfall management products don't work in Agile. And this is equally true at a transformational level as it is at a product level. the whole point about agile ways of working at any level is effectively we're trying to react to change. The big pitch on agile is don't do 18 months of development having set your requirements at the start and then expect at the end to have something that will suit your market because your market's moved. The same rules apply to a transformation. If you try and draw out a waterfall plan for your transformation at the start and expect to get to the end, you won't. But many organisations, despite saying all the great things about agile, try and run agile transformations off a Gantt chart. Not kidding. What you need to do is experiment. You need to look at culture inside your organisation, see if you can move some cultural dials. You need to do little, just like Pharma did, splitting their organisation up, saying actually, can we see evidences in areas? You need to have that sort of experimental mindset. You have to work at a mass which is big enough that you are getting a transformation. There's no point saying, we're going to run a tiny pilot project in that corner of the organisation. That won't quite work. But actually, if you take an experimental mindset and say, we're going to try this thing with a large group of people and see if it actually shifts a dial, great. If it moves it, great. If it doesn't move it, equally great. You can know that you can change your approach. But I do find it quite hilarious when I see bars which are, okay, there's the 4-month cultural change piece. It's like, right, so you're going to change organisational culture in that period of time. Have you done that anywhere else before? No. Do you have any empirical measures as to how long it might take? No. So what have we based this guess on? Well, that's how much money we've got for it. Right. Yeah, please avoid waterfall Gants, etc. In fact, at any level. I know they were picked on a little bit earlier, but at a transformational level particularly. It's a hard sell for top-level management. We're going to do this massive thing that's going to cost a lot of money and we're not going to run it on a plan that you recognise. Remember the third people you talk to? It's that C-suite. And some of them will say, I don't like that, I only wanted to play football, I'm leaving. That's fine. That's allowed. One of those hard lessons that senior management have to learn, actually, and in fact management at most levels, is something about utilisation. I'll just chuck this in as a bit of an example, because actually it was a couple of slides that I drew in another organisation a few months ago that I kind of like the look of, and I thought, I like those, and I spent ages drawing them, so I'm going to put them in this deck. Organisations typically have utilisation-based planning, whereby when resource becomes free, they try and make it do more work. Oh, BA has just finished that big requirements document for one project, we've got another project in the wings, let's give them something else to start writing on. Or we've got a development team there that's waiting for another development team, let's give them something else to work on. I mentioned an organisation earlier with 62 projects in work in progress. This is why. They were infatuated with keeping everyone really busy. This is scary. What you might note is that the priorities, because actually business priorities are not driven by the utilisation constraints inside an organisation, they don't tend to line up actually. And this is often where you get the technology telling the business what their priorities are and when they can have stuff, which makes no sense at all. So as a part of moving in your transformation, have a think about flow-based planning. This blue dotted line here is basically, we need to change the shape of our delivery organisation. We're going to have a look at what we're trying to achieve and work out the best way of how to achieve it. Because again, some organisations look at their delivery area, carve it up a bit, teach them Scrum and say, well, we'll just assume that anything will fit that model. It may well not. There's a big debate about component teams versus feature teams. Actually, that's a perfectly good debate, and actually in some organisations one would suit rather than the other, and it depends what your product mix is and how your release cadences look. But in any event, you need to take some sense of logic about, okay, what's the shape of my company, what are we trying to do, and how can we do it best? So put stuff like that into management's heads as well. We really do need to change the shape of the company, the culture of the company, and all those great things. Good news, I've nearly finished. So, and I've not drunk my water yet. I'll let you stare at the picture while I open my water bottle.
Is that all 3 bottles you're going to drink?
Yeah, I've got 3 to go. Right. This next slide is not a picture of mine. It was drawn about 18 years ago. And it's still a favourite of mine today, actually. One to keep in mind when you're doing any sort of complex change. Click, click, click. You need a lot of components to be in place, otherwise stuff won't quite work. The top line is your bare minimum. You need to have the vision. Why the heck are we doing this agile transformation? Actually, we have a cohesive vision we understand. The skills space, I talked about agile coaches. You need to have the skills to be able to have a cultural change. You need that body of knowledge to come into your organisation and say, this is the best practice. These are the right paths. That's the wrong path. Don't worry, we will help you back onto the right path. You can end up in some weird cargo cults if you don't have the right skills. I went into one organisation 2 years ago and they'd implemented Scrum and they'd scaled down waterfall into a 2-week window. They even had within it, the developers would build stuff for a week and then they'd put stuff onto a test environment, then the testers would see it for the first time and then they'd write some test scripts for it, and then in about the last 3 days of the Scrum they'd start finding bugs which they'd give back to the developers, who then didn't have time to fix it and promote it back to the testing. But you name it. You need skills. Incentives, yeah. People don't like change. If it looks like there is some form of benefit to going on a change journey, people might do it. Otherwise, they won't. Equally, resources. When you put change into a system, the system reacts. If companies want to keep their levels of productivity, they need extra people. I look at the product owner role as a perfect example of where you need extra resources. Most organisations going in an agile transformation do not have people to play product owner roles. But we say, bring someone from the business into our domain. They've got a day job. You've got to backfill them. Don't send the backfill person, send the best person with the best knowledge, but at least give some other resource in there to help them with their day job. You'll find that all over an agile transformation. It's quite a big body of people. In fact, just on the coaching, I have a broad rule of thumb, about 1 to 20. For every 20 people, you need at least one coach. And if it's a bit gnarly, you need more than that. But if you're getting thinner than that, you probably won't manage to have a transformation. And lastly, an action plan. But that's not a Gantt chart. That's actually, we've got an idea about how we're going to advance. So, that was several things about agile transformations. I think I covered all these. Going short on the culture people side, yeah. It is all a cultural change. Running a transformation as a waterfall project, please don't, because it will become laughable. Thinking you're done when you've ticked off activities, please don't have an activity list. It's all about people and culture. Not getting top level leadership brought in, they'll kill you later. Not hiring and firing. You're going to have churn. Recognise it and embrace it. Underestimate how hard it is. It's really hard. Oh, by the way, if anyone says, how long should an agile transformation take? I get asked that question occasionally. 2 to 3 years. If someone says under 2 years, they've given themselves less than 2 years, that's very aggressive. Less than a year won't happen at all. You can't make cultural change that quickly. Not having enough training, starting in the wrong place, yeah. Don't just train your development teams in Scrum. That's not a transformation. Don't focus on process. Please fix product. Understand product much better. Yeah, get everyone involved. Yeah. Don't just grab an off-the-shelf framework, please. And my favourite, I've done it again, just buying Jira and hoping for the best. That won't get you there either. And also, not changing rewards, recognition, progression. I said that incentives piece, looking at the previous slide. So, yeah, that was my quick list on, if you're doing a transformation, have a think about some of those. So, that was the talk, and that was me. And if you have any questions at all, I've got 5 minutes now, or just find me throughout lunch or the afternoon and all those good things.